Let's go ahead and talk about the college football playoff rankings, the first college football playoff rankings of the 2025 season. The Big 12 is in a great spot right now. I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share with you. And we're going to pull up this graphic that On3 put out last night after the show, after the college football playoff selection show. And you'll be able to see that on your screen. At least hopefully you will anyway. There we go. Maybe that's better. But as you're seeing that right there, as you see 1 through 25, you've got Ohio State at 1, Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3, followed by Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, BYU, Texas Tech. So you've got a Big 12 team at 7 and a Big 12 team at 8. Then you have Oregon, Notre Dame, Texas, and Oklahoma rounding out the top 12. And then at 13, you have another Big 12 team with Utah sitting there. So you have 3 Big 12 teams in the top 13 of the very first college football playoff rankings. To round out the top 25, you have Virginia, Louisville, Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, Miami, USC, Iowa, Michigan, Missouri, Washington, Pitt, and Tennessee. That's right. I said Pitt. I know you probably made you want to throw up in your mouth, but they are in there at number 24. So one thing you didn't notice is you did not see an ACC team in the top 12, did you? Because they don't have one. Highest ranked ACC team is Virginia at number 14. Doesn't mean they can't get in, but it means they have probably a longer route to get there, right? Now, the ACC is guaranteed to get at least one spot because of the way the format's set up. The top 5 highest ranked conference champions get an automatic bid. That means your Big 12, Big 10, SEC, ACC, and then you'll get one G5 team in there as well. You'll also notice no G5 team is in the top 25 at all. They did make a note. Their highest or the best G5 team, according to the committee, is Memphis. So if were the playoff to start today, Memphis would get that 5th and final slot for the automatic bids. And then you would have your 7. So right now, if it ended today, you'd have Ohio State. I think it'd be either Ohio State or Indiana at 1. As far as the conference champions go, you'd have Texas A&M representing the SEC. You'd have BYU representing the Big 12. You'd have Virginia representing the ACC, and then you would have Memphis representing the G6. And then you would have your 7 at-larges. But what that would do is you have Texas and Oklahoma sitting there at 11 and 12. The 2 automatic bids from the G6 and the ACC would knock them out. So they would be the first 2 out, so to speak. But, man, there's a lot of football left to play. For example, BYU and Texas Tech play one another this weekend. So which one of them will prevail in that game? And the one who loses, how far do they fall in the rankings? How does the committee view the team who loses that game? If it's Texas Tech, that'll give them 2 losses on the year. Fair or not, they may drop them out of the top 12. Who knows? Now, BYU's undefeated, but does that matter to the committee? We don't know the answer to that question. We'll have to wait and see what happens. You have a lot of these teams that are going to play each other in conference championship games. How will that affect their standing, right? And we all know there's always chaos. Heck, last year, Arizona State wasn't even included in the first initial rankings, and they still ended up getting in the playoff because they won the conference and was really, really close to beating Texas and getting to the semifinals. But some of the controversy surrounding this, I actually don't really have an issue with these rankings, to be honest with you. This is really the first year in a long time I can look at this and say, there's not a lot to argue with here. I feel like the Big 12 is getting respect. You've got 3 teams in the top 13. That means there is actually an outside chance for the Big 12 to get 3 teams in the playoff right now. Probably not going to happen, but I think you really at least have a good shot to get 2 teams in. Your champion and then 1 at large, depending on how things play out, and there aren't too many upsets to end the year. Now, West Virginia has a chance to do a funny thing. They have a chance to upset Texas Tech at the end of the year and really throw a wrench into this thing, but I don't want to get too far ahead. But some of the controversy in the media presser that they did after the event, Mack Rhoades, who's the AD at Baylor, who is now the chair of the committee, spoke to the media in a teleconference after the event. And I did download that. I do get that every week, and I was able to jot some notes down. Some of the questions were, and some of the controversies I've seen floating around. How can you put Notre Dame at 10 ahead of Miami, who's sitting there at 18, when Miami beat Notre Dame head to head? Well, here was Mack Rhoades' answer, basically in a nutshell. Is Notre Dame is playing better has played better since that game than Miami has. Miami has kind of on a downward trajectory, and Notre Dame is not. Notre Dame is playing much better. Notre Dame started the season off 0-2, losing to Miami at Miami, and then they lost at home to Texas A&M, but Texas A&M is ranked third. And the game was on the road, so it didn't really hurt them that much. And one could argue that Miami beat Notre Dame in the head-to-head, and they both have 2 losses. However, when you look at Miami's losses, they're to SMU, who's not ranked, and they're to Louisville at home. Now, Louisville, again, is right there in the rankings. A couple spots ahead of Louisville, a few spots ahead of Miami, rather. And SMU's still a good team. They're still 6-3 on the year. It's still not a terrible loss. But they're looking at the entirety of their body of work. And one thing Mack Rhoades talked a lot about when asked those questions, he talked a lot about watching games and what they see. He said, believe it or not, we do, and I'm paraphrasing this, but believe it or not, we do watch the games. They have coaches in the room. He said they lean on them a lot because of their expertise. But Mack Rhoades was pretty transparent in some of the things they're looking at. They look at how good you are. They have a lot of metrics they look at, how good your team is offensively, how good your team is defensively. They look at strength of record. And they watch the teams play and see who they think are the best teams. So it's not necessarily it's not necessarily a bad thing for your team to lose as long as they lose early. At least that's kind of the way he laid it out there. Now, I appreciated Mack Rhoades' transparency, and I do appreciate the fact that he went into some detail and showed that I think he knows ball. He's a ball knower, as they say on social media. But one area he did kind of contradict himself a little bit is when they asked about timing of your losses. He talked about how they don't really look at that. But then he went on to talk about, the Miami Notre Dame piece, and he also talked about how Alabama is ranked so high, even though they lost to Florida State to open the season, who's not a good team. He said they had arguably the best 4-game stretch of anybody in the country. And they beat, I think it was 3 or 4 ranked teams right in a row without a bye. He said that's, almost unheard of in the SEC. So he felt like Alabama's got a bump for that. So that, to me, that means the timing of your wins and losses does matter more than what they might want to let on. And we all know how you're playing at the end of the season always matters anytime you're dealing with a committee. Look no further than West Virginia getting snubbed in the NCAAs last year. They were not playing good down the stretch and they used Tucker DeVries's injury as a reason to leave him out. We saw the same thing happen with Florida State, even though they were winning. He talked about quarterback play with Ty Simpson and some of these other teams. So, at the end of the day, I think his explanation made sense. You have to look at their body of work, and right now, if you put Notre Dame and Miami on the field today, Notre Dame probably wins that game based on, and I think that's probably how the committee looked. And also, and I actually disagreed with Notre Dame being ahead of Miami at first. And then I saw somebody on social media, and I wish I could credit them, but I don't remember who it was. It was late last night when I was just doom scrolling, basically. But somebody put on social media they took the old BCS metrics that used to be used, the computer rankings from the BCS, and put them side by side with the committees, and man, they were really, really close, including Notre Dame. The BCS also had Notre Dame right at or about 10th in their rankings and ahead of Miami. So, and I've been one of those people who thought they should bring back the BCS system, at least the computer piece of it. And if I'm going to say that and I'm a believer in that system, then who am I to argue with it? And the committee came pretty darn close to the same thing the BCS would have gotten. Now there were a few differences here and there, but nothing major. And then you look at Oregon, that was one of the other controversies. Well, why is Oregon all the way down here at 9? Well, because Oregon has only beaten one team with a winning record all year. They only have one loss, yes, and it is to Indiana, who's undefeated. But I mean, when you look at the teams they've beaten, Northwestern is the only team they've beaten with a winning record this year. So they really don't have any high quality wins. Northwestern's 5-4 or 6-3 football team right now. So it's and Northwestern's not a bad team, but they're not a great team either. So Oregon doesn't really have a quality win on their schedule. So therefore, they have them at 9. I think that's fair. You've got Texas Tech and BYU. BYU's undefeated. They deserve to be ahead of Oregon. Then you've got Texas Tech. Yes, they have a loss, but it was against Arizona State, who's a good team. Now you could split hairs and say maybe Oregon deserves to be ahead of Texas Tech, and that's fine. But I think when you look at their overall body of work and the teams they've played and beaten, I think Texas Tech has played a tougher schedule than Oregon. But at the end of the day, it's all going to play out because, like I said, Texas Tech and BYU have to play one another. You may see Indiana and Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. You may see Texas A&M and Alabama in the SEC championship game, or Georgia and Texas A&M. However it plays out. Notre Dame Notre Dame still has Navy coming up, who's 7-1 right now. They still have Pitt on the schedule, who's ranked 24th in this poll. Pitt could beat Notre Dame. If that happens, Notre Dame will get knocked out. So I personally don't really have an issue with where any of these teams are ranked. I mean, you could split hairs and say, well, Utah should be ranked higher than Oklahoma and Texas. Maybe, but again, they all have 2 losses. All their losses are, for the most part, to good teams. So, I mean, you're splitting hairs at this point, right? Let it all play out, see who beats who, and at the end of the season, then if the rankings at the end of the season are bad, then that's when we can really, rant and rave and complain about it. But and look, we have the right to do that now as well, because this is kind of giving us an idea of what the committee's looking at. But I'll be honest with you, as a fan of a team in the Big 12 and who's gotten on this show and pounded the table about the Big 12 getting disrespected, I can't say that looking at this. The ACC could say that. Now, I think the ACC is just a weak conference this year personally. But if my team's in the ACC, I probably wouldn't agree with that. But if I'm Virginia or Louisville, I'm not real happy right now. Miami has a fair gripe. I don't necessarily disagree with where Miami's at, but they do have a fair gripe. Georgia Tech, they only have 1 loss. They're at 17, and you've got some 2-loss teams ahead of them in Texas, Oklahoma, and Utah. So, there are some fair gripes on here. You could argue that Alabama doesn't deserve to be ahead of BYU, but I would argue Alabama's played a tougher schedule. I think Alabama's right about where they need to be. So, I want to hear your thoughts on this college football playoff rankings and where do you think the committee got it wrong? Where do you think the committee got it right? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to my paid VIP channel members of this episode. If you want to become a paid member, it's an easy and cheap way to support what I do here to help me keep the lights on. There are 2 levels. There's a $2.99 a month level, a $4.99 a month level. All members of both of those levels get random shout outs, and the ones of this episode are Brian Siders, Susan Ross, Luke Armacost, Lonnie Johansson, and Cody Cutright. Thank you all for your membership and your support. If you're a $4.99 level member, not only do you get the shout outs, but you also get some early access to some content. For example, the Golden Blue Breakdown show that I'll be recording tonight with Jonathan Martin. You will get early access to that show where he and I will be previewing the upcoming Colorado game. All members also get, high priority in live streams to your comments and your chats. So if you want to become a channel member, there's a join button right below this video on your device. Some devices may not have it. If it don't, go over to my channel homepage on YouTube, and there's a join button there. Now, you can also support me for free by hitting the thumbs up button, leaving a comment, or subscribing to the channel. in conversations with people, I realize there are some people who don't know how to subscribe to YouTube. So I need to explain that. I've taken that for granted. If you want to subscribe to my channel, you should see a button below this video near the chat box or near the comment box or whatever. It should say subscribe. It'll either be white, it'll be a white box, or it could be red, depending on what device you're using. It says subscribe. All you have to do is press that button with your finger, and you are subscribed to Couz's Corner. It's that easy. It's free, takes a second. Hitting the thumbs up button, same thing. You'll see a thumbs up button under the video. If you hit that, it pushes my content out to more people, helps me get noticed. Another way you can help me is there's a button down below also. You'll see a bunch of different buttons. You'll see download, obviously like, you'll see download, all kinds of stuff. Between the download button and a button that says thanks, or it's a heart with a dollar sign in it, I think, actually, you'll see a button that says hype, HYPE. If you hit that button, again, it's free. It gets my content out to more people. Please press that button. It's one thing YouTube's really looking at heavily right now to push creators, especially smaller creators like myself. So if you wouldn't mind, support me by hitting that hype button. It would really mean a lot. Also have merch. You can get a shirt like the one I'm wearing now that has my Couz's Corner logo on it. There's hoodies, T-shirts, polos, coffee mugs, all kinds of different hats. You can get you a nice Richardson trucker hat like this. The new merch store I have now, the prices are much more reasonable than my old one. And I personally think the quality is better as well. So go check it out. It's through fourthwall.com. Thank them for partnering with me. Go check that out. My merch store, if you want some Couz's Corner merchandise. It's another way you can help me and also get yourself a T-shirt. If you have a family member who loves Couz's Corner, maybe it'd be a good Christmas gift for them. And I'll tell you, I'll make you a deal. If you buy a hoodie from Couz's Corner, from the Couz's Corner merch store, I will throw in one of these, a koozie, a drink koozie. It's my old channel logo, the old Couz's Corner logo with the shot glass on the football. On the back, it says Top Shelf College Football Content. If you buy a hoodie from the Couz's Corner merch store, I will throw one of these in for absolutely free. Send me a screenshot at couz.walker@gmail.com showing that you purchased a hoodie, and obviously put your address in the email, and I will ship you one of these koozies if you send me a screenshot of your receipt showing you bought a hoodie. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you tuning into the channel. If you're listening on podcast platforms, please follow, please subscribe, please, support us over there as well. Leave a 5-star review if you don't mind. That really helps. I really appreciate you tuning into the show. Hope the rest of your day is absolutely top shelf. God bless you, and cue Country Roads.